The Amillennial Theology, Part 1. According to my teachings, Satan was bound for 1,000 years when power was given to Jesus. Jesus prophesies the end of Satan, saying the prince of this world must be cast out. Satan had to be taken out of the way for Jesus' millennial kingdom on earth to begin. Jesus is then caught up to the throne of God. Michael the archangel then binds Satan and his angels into the bottomless pit. This binding is a temporary imprisonment for only 1,000 years, as Scripture tells us. The millennial reign with Christ now begins at Pentecost. John's vision gets a glimpse of the millennial kingdom, seeing two groups of people ruling with Christ during his millennial reign. The first group, John says, "I saw thrones, and they that sat on them." It was the apostles who sat upon thrones, starting the millennial kingdom. The second group were those converted into the church during Acts, those who received not the mark and those beheaded for their faith. The Amillennial Theology, Part 2. The apostles of Christ are promised a kingdom and thrones in heaven. The apostles are also given unique powers. They can forgive sins and are given judgment over the church of Christ to rule over the saints who overcome the early tribulation. The apostles also establish the office of the second bishop. The first bishop is Jesus Christ. The apostles are victorious over the beast by two biblical elements: the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. Rome then becomes the head location for the Christian Empire in the 3rd century, establishing the Catholic Church. Amillennialism then becomes the foundation for Christianity. Amillennialism is now known as the mainstream Christian end-time theology. Amillennialists believe that the 1,000-year reign with Christ was spiritual and had passed historically. For the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ is come as amillennialism reigns for 1,200 years. There are several passages in Luke 21 that help strengthen one's belief concerning the amillennial kingdom. Verse 7, his disciples asked Jesus, "When shall these things be?" Verse 16, Jesus speaks of their death, describing a period that would soon come. Verse 20, Jesus then describes Jerusalem compassed with armies as the time of their departure. Mark 13:14, at the time of being compassed with armies, the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel is taking place. This was also the time when the king had set up idols of himself in the Jewish temple. Luke verse 22 and Mark verse 19 are both referring to the same timing. Jesus then explains to them, "These be the days of vengeance." Mark verse 19, Jesus tells them that in those days shall be afflictions such as was not from the beginning of creation which God created, neither shall be. Jesus speaks a prophecy concerning the days of vengeance. Jesus' word, "neither shall be," refers to the gathering doctrine of the last days. The times of the Gentiles was fulfilled once the Jews retained their land. In 1948, the Jews received part of their country back. In 1967, the Arab-Israeli War began with Israel between June 5th and 10th, 1967, against Egypt, United Arab Republic known as Jordan, and Syria. The Jews now possessed their Holy Land once again. No longer were the Jews trodden down by the Gentiles. Another important parallel of the Apocalypse, Luke 21:25-28. Jesus then speaks of a time to come. This misery is a parallel to that of the very end of time. The parallel is noted because verse 24 ends saying, "until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled." Clearly an end-time prophecy, a prophecy which was fulfilled in 1967, known as the Six-Day War. Although Jesus was speaking to first-century disciples, the processional order of occurrences stated within the contents first reveals an end-time prophecy, followed by a time of sorrow which would also conclude a parallel apocalyptic dating.